Hi, everybody. Welcome to our second talk of 2024. I'm one of your two hosts, Nor Kyle.
And I'm the other one of your two hosts, Mushtaq Ali.
Yeah, and thank you for joining us once again in the Nine-Sided Circle with all of our lovely friends here who are joining us from near and far. And we're just really happy to have you. So, do we have any, I guess we do our spiel first, right?
Do our spiel. Yeah.
Yeah, so everyone's favorite part. You know how this goes. You can support our channel by doing all the usual things like liking our videos, subscribing to our channel, and getting notifications for whenever we put up a new video, which is going to be about once a week because we always do, almost always have a Sunday talk. And you'll be able to keep up with us that way. And you can leave comments on our videos as well to keep the dialogue going if you weren't able to join us live, or if you have additional thoughts or questions you'd like to share. And we will do our best to get back to you and to participate in the ongoing conversation. So, anything you want to add, Mushtaq?
Yeah. If you really like us, you can make a donation to the Nine-Sided
Yes.
Circle to help us keep going. We're still doing our fund drive
Mm-hmm.
so that we can make enough money to keep this thing going for another year.
Yeah, and we've had some awesome people donate already. We are
Yes,
so
we've gotten
grateful.
some really nice,
Yeah,
generous donations.
and some messages of appreciation, which always, keep us motivated to do what we do. And we're not dependent on praise, but we drink it in, we enjoy it just like any other human being. And yeah, thanks for sticking with us and supporting what we do and contributing in the ways that you're able to contribute. It helps a lot. It helps immensely. Other than that, anything else?
No, that's about it.
Yeah, great. So, with that said, we are switching gears a little bit this week. In the past, we have done Sunday talks where we focus on a Sufi story or stories and not only delve into the lovely narrative, but also unpack the, if there's any significance to the story to be found, we like to see about finding it together. So, we have a story for you this evening that is a Mulla Nasruddin story. Would you like to leap in, Mushtaq?
Aren't you telling the story?
Not this time around. Not this
Well,
time
I
around.
thought you were telling the story. Darn. That means I got to come up with a story.
All right. Well, you better get your ass in gear now. You got 30 seconds.
Okay. So, Mullah Nasruddin was once not a mullah. He was not even old. He was a very young man. And when he was a young man, he was a seeker. He wanted to know the truth. And so he studied with everybody he could find to study with. He studied with uh, the people who knew the Quran. He studied with the people who knew philosophy. Every kind of person he could find to teach him, he would study with them. And in one of his uh, treks to a mosque where there was a great scholar, he discovered in the library of the mosque a manuscript that talked about um, Kitab al Sirr, the book of the secret, and how that contained the ultimate secret of the universe. And if you could find this book and read it, you would know everything. You would know all of the secrets. And so Mullah decided that that is what he needed to do. He needed to go out and hunt this book down. Now, this was not easy because this is before Mullah ever even got his donkey. He was donkeyless, and still he went on this quest for this book. And so he traveled about, and everywhere he went, he asked the learned, he asked the fools, he asked the madmen, he asked the mendicant dervishes where he could find the book of the secret. Mostly, nobody knew. Some had heard of it, some had not. One day, he was traveling from one town to the next, and he had to go up over the mountains. And at the top of the mountains, it got dark because it happens when you are up long enough, it gets dark. The sun goes down. And he was going, oh my God, I'm going to get stuck up here on the top of this mountain and I'm going to freeze to death because tops of mountains tend to be cold. But he sees a light and he goes towards the light and he finds a shepherd's hut. He goes and he calls out, and it turns out there's a shepherd there, an old man who invites him in. And the old man gives him hospitality. He shares his food with him. Pretty simple fare, a little bread, a little cheese, sheep's cheese. And then they talk. And the shepherd, as it turns out, has heard of the book of the secret. And he said, I know that you've got to go north and east of here to get to it. You have to go into the cities that you find in the mountains, north and east. And so he takes off and he goes that way. And after some travel, he comes to a town and he goes to the town well to get some water. And there's an old woman there and she's trying to, you've seen wells, right, with the bucket and the rope and everything, and you have to pull it up, and it's not easy. So the mullah offers to pull the water up for her. And she, of course, is very, very grateful. And she invites him to share a meal with her in gratitude for not having to lift, 30 pounds of water in a big bucket. And the mullah carries the water home for her, and they have a meal, and he tells her about his search. And she says, my grandfather was also on this same search, and he traveled to a tekke. Tekke is a Sufi house. It was high in the Caucasus, high in the Caucasus Mountains. And there supposedly he found the book. But the problem was he came back and he was mad. He was crazy. He was weird from the day he returned. So you got to watch out, young man, because sometimes knowing the secrets is not good for you. And Mullah thought about this. He thought about the warning, but he decided he had to go anyway. He was willing to risk everything to know the secret. So he travels on. After a few days' travel, he's heading up into the Caucasus Mountains. And he stops off at a caravanserai to spend the night. And there, in the corner, in the shadows, minding his own business and sipping tea, is a dervish. Mullah goes over and strikes up a conversation with him, hoping that the dervish has some hint as to what to do and where to find this tekke, this monastery, and the book that he has been searching for now a couple of years. And the dervish says, take this, go that way, and find the bee's hive. He gives him a ring, and on the ring is a bee carved into the face of the ring. And the mullah thinks that this is strange and doesn't know whether the old dervish is having fun with him or not, but it's a nice ring, and he takes it. And he travels up into the mountains, and he travels for days, looking around, asking anybody he meets if they know of a monastery, if there a tekke where the dervishes congregate. And sometimes he gets pointed in one direction, sometimes he gets pointed in another. Finally, he sees domes off in the distance. And the domes, he looks at them and he goes, those look like beehives. And so he heads towards them. And after a while, he comes to a building, and he knocks on the door and asks for hospitality. They invite him in. And it's a group of people, and they're sitting around, and some of them are doing their prayers, and some of them are doing other practices, some of them are reading. And Mullah is brought to the head of this tekke, and Nasruddin explains to them that he has been looking for the place where the Book of the Secret is kept. The abbot of this monastery strokes his beard. He says, you want to read the book? And Mullah says, yes, I want to read the book in the worst possible way. And the old man says, go through that door. You'll find the book. Mullah can hardly believe it. He's like, the book's here. Either that or this guy is totally putting me on. But I think he's probably for real, because everything is as it should be for the book to actually be here. And so he goes into this room, and there, in the middle of the room, on a pedestal, is a book. And he goes over and he sees written on the cover in gold leaf, the Book of the Secret, Kitab al Sirr. And he opens it up to the first page. And the first page says, you have studied long in hopes of finding the secret. Then at the bottom, it says, continued on page 4. So he flips over to page 4. It says, you have learned the methods of purifying the heart, the body, and the mind. And again, at the bottom, it says, continued on page 2. And he thinks, that's weird. And he flips back to page 2, and it says, you have sought guidance from both the wise and the foolish. And it says, continued on page 8. Page 8 says, you have wandered long. Continued on page 5. Flips over to page 5, and it says, you have studied with both the outer and you have struggled with both the outer and the inner worlds. Continued on page 7. He flips it over to page 7, and it says, and now you have arrived at what you think is your goal. Continued on page 9. He flips it over to page 9. It says, know this, O traveler. From the beginning, there has never been a secret. Every mystery you have ever sought has been hidden in plain sight. Continued on page 6. Flips it over to page 6. Now go forth with the grace and the blessing of Al-Haq. Continued on page 3. Flips it over. And know that Allah Most High has written the truth in every atom and has opened your eyes. Mullah sits in front of that book for hours, just staring at the last line. Then he gets up and he leaves. He walks out of the monastery. And you can hear him walking down the road, singing to himself, dancing a few steps here and there, stopping and talking to a likely looking plant, and generally enjoying himself. Because now he knows the secret. And that's the story of how Mullah Nasruddin became Mullah Nasruddin. And one could say after that, he was a little mad, at least by the sensibilities of regular people. There's the story. What does it mean? Does it mean anything? Is it just a fun story or a boring story? Don't everybody talk at once.
Well, it's certainly a fun story. Um, the thing I noticed pretty quickly is that it's following the lines of the Enneagram.
Oh, yeah.
I wasn't paying enough attention to the descriptions on each page and how they related to the points. So I'll have to rewatch the YouTube version.
Yeah. You might even say the entire story, the meeting of various people all follow enneagrammatic patterns.
Nancy.
Oh, I was thinking that the modern meaning of the story could be avoid clickbait, because all of it is about revealing secrets.
Osama is amused.
Yeah. It is the medieval Ottoman version of clickbait. Sufi clickbait. I like that.
I ran into one of those yesterday on YouTube. There was one video I watched that I was interested in, and then YouTube, as it's wont to do, gave me a whole lot of related videos, and they were pretty much all clickbait.
Yeah.
The rabbit
It was
hole.
weird. I've never seen it do quite that bad a job of finding things that were meaningful, but so it goes.
So, Osama, what came up for you?
Well, first of all, that story was just fun. It really is. And the way that you were sharing it, Mushtaq, was great. I was fully immersed in that story and seeing myself and feeling myself being this young Nasruddin traveling and going through all of these stops and journeys and just seeking. The first thing that I guess the first impression is how much is the journey, how much does it color the actual result of the book, right? The whole aesthetic of the scene going into the small little, oh, go through that door over there. Ooh, there's a mystery door. Going through that, there's the book in the middle, the gold leaf and opening. Oh my God, it's the book finally. If young Nasruddin, if somebody had told him that, if somebody, let's say I am Nasruddin in this case, if somebody had told me that in a matter-of-fact way, would I have received that secret in a similar way? How much does the journey give weight to the secret itself? So that's kind of the first impression.
And that is a very good impression, because the fact of the matter is that if you had not gone on the journey, the revelation at the end would be meaningless. I mean, anybody can tell you that. You can find that particular fact anywhere, and most people have heard it in one form or another, and it goes right past them. It's the journey that prepares you to experience the truth. And you are, in fact, a young Nasruddin. You just don't know it.
Yeah, that was a really good story. I enjoyed it very, very much. And like Ian said, I have to or maybe, I don't know if we're gonna go over it in this video on this talk, over how the Enneagram,
I would rather you guys figure it out for yourself first. And
I
then
agree.
in Sufi studies, we can discuss it at length.
I like
This
that.
is a very short version of this story. I could tell this story for the entire hour of this video, but I figured then we'd have to spend another hour talking about it. And by that time, I'd be too hungry to go on. Kyle would be, she'd be giving me a dirty look.
That makes sense.
Thanks, Osama. Who else would like to share? Any thoughts? Welcome.
I was struck by his willingness to go mad, to lose everything. And also that, I mean, he was asking madmen, he was asking everyone, like there was no limit to, you know, he didn't seem to be discriminating as far as who he asked. So that showed me that like everyone is a potential teacher. He didn't have, his longing was so deep that, I mean, there were no restrictions for him.
Yeah, and sometimes crazy people can tell you the truth.
Yeah, they can tell you and they can see it. You know, a lot of us wear the filtered glasses of our reality tunnels, and we're pretty consistent about that. But what about those who don't have such a tethered relationship to their reality tunnel?
Yeah. It reminds me, when I was young, I worked in a psychiatric ward. And there was this old woman we had as a patient for a while. She was supposedly, maybe schizophrenic and maybe a little dementia. And one day she was bustling through the day room, just hustling. And one of the orderlies, the young woman, said to her, Martha, well, her name was Martha, Martha, where are you going? And she stops and she says, honey, I'm going to God, but it's been a long, hard journey. And she just walks off. And we're all sitting there going, oh.
That's deep, man.
Yeah.
Oh, Martha.
Yeah.
Yeah, so sometimes brilliance looks like that, like madness.
Yep. And sometimes madness looks like brilliance.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Take it in and then, sort for the gems, I guess. Who else? Nancy.
I was just thinking about what a nice story it is. I mean, I read contemporary fiction, there's horrors, there's violence, and this was just a story where nothing awful happens.
Yeah, and still people listened. Go figure.
Nice change of pace.
Yeah. I mean, I could have thrown in some bandits, but
You could have thrown in some dangerously crazy people, some
lions,
scammers, but
there could be
yeah,
lions.
yeah, a dangerous cult, whatever, but there was nothing like that.
Yeah. And it didn't need anything like that.
Mhm,
All it needed was the journey.
mhm.
Yeah. I might rewrite that story and have Nasruddin end up in Mos Eisley.
In where?
Mos Eisley, a wretched
City in-
hive of scum
yeah.
and villainy.
Not familiar.
It's an obscure Star Wars reference.
James, you want to give it a shot? What's on your mind?
I was thinking all that journeying, going through all that, all the anticipation that builds up. It must really uh, enhance your awareness, the anticipation, and the effect that different aspects of the journey have on you. So you reach what you think is the end in the sense of a goal somehow separate from your life. And instead, there's this sort of revelation about the omnipresence. It's all in the atoms, it's everywhere. But although your motive has been conventional, the effect of the journey is to really build and focus you, so that when the rug is pulled out from underneath your feet, when your conventional motive crumbles in the truth, it has an effect on you. It's not just a nice little bit of glib wisdom. It's something that has impact. Without the journey, or without something to really get you going, draw you together, focus you, whatever language you want to use, then the bit of wisdom at the end, you might just, write on a fortune cookie and it's kind of done. That's the first thing that really sticks out.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a great observation. I like that.
I have nothing else at this point. Just that.
Great. Thanks, James. Ah.
One of the things that was just occurring to me is that it's interesting Nasruddin's reaction after reading the book, and yet the people who were there in the room next to it, have they read the book and they just didn't react to it very, very much, or what? I'm not sure quite how to express what I'm trying to say. I mean, because the guy who told him where the book was, it's in the next room. I mean, he was just very nonchalant about the whole thing.
Yeah, it was rather amazing, wasn't it?
Something to ponder there. Yeah. James.
I just remembered this pretty average, well, I don't know, this film from the 70s, I think, called Circle of Iron with David Carradine. But it's this sort of swords and sorcery martial arts flick. This guy has to go on a quest to discover the Book of Wisdom, and he goes through all these encounters. He's guided by this blind, wandering martial artist who's David Carradine. He battles all these enemies who are also David Carradine in different roles and different costumes. He finally gets to the end, this this retreat up in the mountains, whatever, and they finally show him the Book of Ancient Wisdom. And the whole thing is a series of mirrors. It's just pages with a mirror on each one,
Mm.
and it just it's the same. Just what I'm still going through in my head, that the quality of the search,
Yeah. And
the quality of the search.
so, a couple of things about that movie.
I have
One,
not
it was
seen it.
actually written by Bruce Lee.
Yeah,
He wrote it himself so that he could be in the role of the young searcher, and or
uh,
the role that David Carradine took, which is an irony in and of itself. But if you think about what happened in the movie, it was all Sufi stories. I mean, you have Khidr and Moses there.
yeah, built hitting the beautiful child so he's no longer a brat, restoring the wall to hide.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. And the others were basically Sufi stories as well.
Hmm.
Lee cribbed a lot from the Sufis.
Huh.
But yeah, I mean the secret book is a classic Sufi trope.
Okay.
Not to be confused with The Secret, TM, trademark, whatever.
That thing. How to turn wish fulfillment into a fully fledged self delusion. I hated that book when it came along. Bleh. Anyhow.
Yeah, so we've done a
But
couple
yeah,
talks
just
on that. That's something else. But yeah.
yeah, the quality of the search. Even if your motive at the start is dualistic and conventional, or whatever term you want to use, the quality of the search gets you there.
Yeah, and if you think about at the end of it, the fact that the message was not in order also forces you to stay awake.
Yeah.
I mean, anybody can sit and read page after page and kind of zone out. But if you don't know where the next part of the narrative is, what page it's going to be, you have to pay a little bit more attention.
Plus, it's just funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a nice it gets you as the listener to the story to wake up as much as the character participating in the reading of the book. So, you're expecting this, wow, we finally found it. Tell me everything I need to know in digestible chunks that are going to be just a nice snack for me to enjoy in this moment. But really, it gives you something that you can take a moment to dive a little bit deeper on. And as Ian was saying, going back and listening to the video again, just to check yourself, to make sure you're paying attention as you listen.
Along these same lines, I was left with the aftertaste of, darn it, you didn't even focus on the order of the Book of Secret. How dare you? And kind of like the meta point there is sometimes we're so close to the thing around which everything turns around, and we just lose the focus there where it matters the most.
That's pretty human. Yeah.
What was the core of the message of the book, though? I'll give you a hint. The core of the message was found on the 7th page. And then
Was that the secret is hidden in plain sight? Was that the one?
Yeah, that's actually on the 9th page, and that's the secret. So the 7th page said, and now you have arrived at what you think is your goal. Then the 9th page says, know this, O traveler, from the beginning there has never been a secret. Every mystery you have ever sought has been hidden in plain sight. That's the essence.
I can think of two things. I mean, for what you've just been saying, there's that what you think you're looking for may not be the thing you're really looking for.
Could very well be the case.
Yeah, and the more general thing that was occurring to me, getting back to the niceness theme, is just how he wants to read the book, but he's not grabby about it. He waits until he gets permission.
There was a little bit of chomping at the bit, but yeah, he was respectful about it.
And probably if he had snuck in at night and tried to read the book, it would have been one of those Indiana Jones sequences. Open the book, the giant stone rolls down on him and stuff like that.
Oh man, that would not have been such a nice story in the end after all.
Yeah, or he might have just been too frantic to pay attention.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, so there was this aspect of him being welcomed in. And it did kind of almost seem to me like, we've been expecting you, you know?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And you notice that the first part of the book basically says, you've done your preparations, you've done the work, and now here it is. Here's the secret. And think about that for a moment, if you will. What if the answer to every secret was right there in plain sight, right in front of you, and you just never allowed yourself to see it? What would that be like? If you could walk out your door and see all of the secrets of the universe, or sit in your room and see all of the secret of the universe, or talk to a friend and see all of the secrets of the universe.
Nancy?
Um, I'd have to figure out something else to do with my time.
Well, you could get a donkey and be silly.
There's always that. Yes, be a subtle prankster.
Yeah. That's what, Mullah Nasruddin's donkey is named Sahif, which in Arabic means silly. And in some ways, he's just as an important a character as the mullah is.
James.
Here, it becomes obvious to you that the secret is always there. And the quest, in that sense, is over. All that's really left, in a sense, is for you to pass it on, one way or
And,
another. I would
and in a
imagine.
certain sense, the quest has always been over. There never was a quest. You made up the quest so that you could not notice the truth.
Well, there's two sides to that, right? On the one hand, as we were saying with Osama earlier, now you can value the obvious because you went on this whole ridiculous trek to figure it out and see what was already there. If that's what it takes. Yeah.
Well, that is very, I mean, that's interesting, like how it's this, this loop, this circle, this infinity relationship in the whole thing. And also, I was talking to a friend of mine today, like, what is it that made young Nasruddin want on this journey from the first place?
What was that? You got
Right.
chopped.
Oh, sorry. Look,
What
what
was
is
it?
that young Nasruddin, that made young Nasruddin go on this journey from the first place? What was that longing? What was that?
And
For him
that's
to
a
be a
really
seeker.
good question.
It's also something that I've been thinking about in general. It's like, why did I get started on a journey like this when so many people I know don't seem to have done that? And it puzzles me. I don't know why some people do get started.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's kind of a mystery, which means that it must be hidden in plain sight. We could think that every soul longs for the truth. Most people cover their soul with enough manure that that longing is stifled, is hidden, is you can't hear it because there's such a pile of shit on your soul. Some of us get some of that scraped off somehow by accident, by hook or by crook, for some reason. And the question manages to penetrate to what passes for consciousness within us. And once you hear it, you can't unhear it. Once you hear that question, you cannot unhear it. But the thing is, I can ask you that question over and over and over again, and you won't hear the question. And then one day you go, oh, I mean, it could be anything. A car could drive by on a rainy day and splash you with water, and that makes you ask the question of yourself. Or you go to your grave never caring. Cherie, what do you think? Are you in a place where you can talk?
No, not right now.
Okay.
Lavita, how about you? Are you there?
There she is.
Gotta unmute. Nothing to add. All right, that's cool. That's cool. It's just good to have your presence.
I'm glad my sign language was working.
What's that?
I'm glad my sign language was working.
Raphael, we haven't seen you in a while. How are you? What are your thoughts?
Assuming you're in a place where you can talk.
Yeah, which you might not be.
Oh, hello. How's it going? It's been a while. Thank you for having me here today.
Yeah, great to see you. So to
Yeah, I
speak.
really appreciate you guys' work. Like I mentioned, yes, and funny thing, I was just talking to somebody yesterday, and I was telling them how based on the readings I have on Gurdjieff, how it seems like no one has earned their soul yet, or how he's still in this book and literature, how he's spoken of, and so that's interesting that now we're talking about it and how we're trying to get our soul and it was pretty funny how you said it's full of manure. Really made me laugh, to be honest. And how accidents have really, really scraped that off. And I believe that really, really is true. I've encountered really a lot of close near-death experiences where broken ribs or have near-death experiences where they really shook myself up, where I'm able to see more in depth of myself. So I really agree with that. Definitely.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah, I mean, it can be the littlest things or it can be the most world-shattering things that snap us out and have us thinking about.
Yeah, near-death experiences tend to work fairly well, but I recommend saving them for a last resort. Do everything else first.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in a way, the universe is always kind of giving us a nudge, right? Pay attention. Hey, I'm talking to you. Hey. look at all this good stuff I have to share with you. And we spend so much time being oblivious that sometimes that nudge ends up being a pretty powerful one. It's a risky endeavor to be reached out to in that way. Nancy.
Well, I mean, one thing that came to mind, which I'd never thought about before, was okay, I'm haunted by something. I'm looking for something, so to speak. Am I haunted by the best available thing? Is the quest I'm on not quite the right quest?
Say a little more about that if you would.
Oh, just in one sense, I'm really pulled by something, and in another sense, I don't know what I'm doing. And, there's stuff about people can think they're hunting for God or whatever, and their idea of it is so wrong that, well, they're just plain wrong.
Wild goose chase type situation.
Yeah, I mean, if you'll excuse my mentioning Idris Shah, he has a lot about people think they know what they're looking for, and they could be very wrong. And Nasruddin was actually, he was looking for the book. He was going about it in an innocent way that actually worked. No guarantee that everybody who's looking for something is going to find something worthwhile. Or of course, some might just take a much longer path but still get there.
Yeah. And at the same time, here's another thought I just had that I'd like to share before it slips away, is that someone else could have arrived at that book and been like, what the hell is this? All this for this garbage? Like, I don't even know why I bothered. All that energy wasted. This is stupid.
Right. Or, what kind of obnoxious thing is this where I have to keep paging back and forth? Why won't they just tell me?
Yeah. 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 So, here's the thought I'm having. Some of it is going to be, I hear what you're saying about, the wild goose chase that takes us to dangerous places. I want to just like stick a pin in that and share the thought that, like, if the secret is in plain sight, then it's almost impossible to miss it, except that we can bring an attitude to it that causes us to miss it.
You could even say that you have to work to keep from knowing the secret.
Funny, I was thinking in a different context about how you have to work to ignore things.
Yeah. And that's it. You have to work to ignore the secret.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, I've found that it's been a long job for me to see some things that were in plain sight.
Yeah.
I'm sure we all relate to that in our own ways.
Mm.
Yeah, I've got a slightly different spin on that, which is that at various times in my life, actually more in a professional context, there's a lot of things that become obvious in retrospect. And yet, looking forward, they weren't obvious at all. And then once you've seen it, you think, how the hell did I not see that before?
Mhm.
Mm. James shares, maintaining the false self is a lot of time and effort, constantly keeping reality at bay. Yeah, I mean, for the most part, we have, like I said earlier, we have a pretty strong drive to maintain our filters on reality, or as James is saying, maintaining the false self. And with all of that investment at stake, yeah, of course it's going to be all the more difficult to kind of plow through, as Mushtaq was saying, the shit that we have committed to our entire lives to maintain. What happens when we start shoveling it away, and what kind of effort is it going to take to realize that's what's needed, and that what we're encountering is not our pile of gold and gems that we've collected, but is honestly just bullshit detritus that we've mistaken as treasure. Shuri.
I was thinking about how we don't value the mundane and the journey and the searching and the work that goes with trying to understand or discover the secret or whatever it is that you're pursuing. And it can apply to many things. And so you think, I think I know this, I think I know this, I think I know this. And you keep flipping around, and you want the best tool or the best manual or the best app or the best something or other. And when you get it, the quality of it loses its new and shininess very, very quickly. And then you don't value it. And so the mundane, when you're doing a practice of something every day, and even though we're breathing every day, we should be consciously breathing and all this practice that we could apply, but we don't value it enough to put more time into it. Mushtaq and I were talking about me not actually allowing myself to rest fully, and that's something I wasn't valuing enough for myself. So when I'm doing certain work, I discovered something with my Japanese tool, my big shears that I use for hedging. And I've been using these things for years, over 10 years, 15 years. I've been using this beautiful tool, and I do great work with it. But this weekend when I did it, I changed the angle by just a couple of millimeters, and I did something entirely different. And I was giggling to myself. Why didn't I think of that before?
Revelatory.
Yeah. So this is where I'm saying the value of actually embracing and treasuring and valuing the mundane and the everyday thing that's part of our journey. And we flip back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And all of a sudden, that whole quality of the feeling of it is changing in your hands. And you see something for the very first time. And you think, what? Did he teach me that? Or did he teach me that? Or did my husband tell me about this? And I'm thinking, does he know about this? And I was like so pleased. And I think, oh, there it is again, because I initially started the job with no energy, no motivation. And sometimes our journey starts that way, and you think one foot after the other, and you turn up to the talk every week, and you try and muster your energy for it. And then one day, bang, something turns on. You think, that's what it's all about. But you can't actually sell that to people. You can't actually, you can tell me, but I have to feel it. and I have to turn up every day. So if part of the journey is the learning, is you turn up every moment, and not to be discouraged, but embrace the mundane that goes with it, because the little secret is right there in those little details at a slight angle to the left.
Beautiful, Shuri. Thank you. Hmm. Yeah. I'm having a little bit of an experience of that myself lately, in the sense of this aspect of self where, you know, they're always saying use positive self-talk instead of negative self-talk, because it's going to be so much harder if you think that, you know, cracking the whip over your own head is going to get you farther than being supportive to yourself and encouraging yourself on. And it seems so weird to do that for someone who has not made a habit of being self-encouraging. But I think it's one of those really quiet changes that can make a huge impact on how you experience yourself and experience the world around you. But you have to be willing to practice it. But because it's one of those things that's so obvious and feels so weird for those who don't make a habit of doing it, it's like, I'm going to get along without that. But then you try it out and you're like, there is something to this that I have been overlooking. And it was hidden in plain sight the whole time. Very strange, yet quite amazing. And yeah, until you do it, you don't really understand it. Like so many of these little things. Yeah. You can't say it, you got to do it. You can't tell someone about it, they need to step into it. But in showing up for each other, we can offer inspirations to each other. So there's that too. Just the spark. That's all it takes for someone to suddenly have those revelatory moments. Nancy, did you have another thought you might like to share? And then I want to check in with Yusuf too.
Oh.
I just saw
Sorry,
you
I forgot.
unmuted
I
there.
forgot to mute. I've got some things that aren't quite formulated about how, yes, there's some prerequisite for learning to be on your own side,
Yeah, definitely.
and it's really important. I mean, like, you can't even do the positive self-talk unless in some sense you think you deserve it.
Agreed. Yes. So I definitely don't mean to oversimplify that, but given that this is not a talk about self-compassion, I didn't want to go down a rabbit hole with that.
Oh,
But yeah. No,
yeah,
not that
yeah.
I'm disparaging your sharing though, because you're absolutely right about that. There are some baby steps for those of us who find it difficult to do in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Thanks, Nancy.
But yeah.
Yusuf, what's been on your mind?
I was thinking about these two names of God, Az-Zahir and Al-Batin.
Yes.
Um,
The outer and the inner.
yeah. So the truth is hidden, but also so obvious. It's hidden because it's so obvious, maybe. So,
You
there's
make a
a
point there, yeah.
there's a Sufi called Niyazi Misri, lived in 18th century, I suppose. Beautiful poetry of his. And this is very bad translation, I'm sure, but he says, I was looking for an answer to my problems. It turns out my problems were my answers. And I was asking myself for an evidence. It turns out myself is the evidence itself. So it is always like that. This kind of story is like Kung Fu Panda. There is a dragon scroll and you open it up and it's just an empty.
I love that, yeah.
And the beautiful part of it was the Kung Fu Panda opens it up. Yeah, he doesn't see anything, but then later it turns out, yeah, there is no secret ingredient. So, but the other guy, the bad cat, I don't know what was his name. He opens that up also, and they are looking to the same scroll. One of them can figure it out, but the other one of them fails. So, and it's always, these stories are amazing. And they always say that the answer is right in front of your nose and you can't see it. You may see it if you are looking for it for a long time, maybe long time, maybe short time, I don't know. But the important part of it is looking for it. So.
I'm digging the Kung Fu Panda reference, Yusuf. Thank you. Yes. It's interesting how the secret is sort of emergent, as opposed to, as I said earlier, being like a snack that's given to us. It's something that kind of emerges from the experience of living itself. And yeah, are we able to recognize its emergence? This kind of makes me think of our talk last week about grace and being in that space of openness and gratitude, so that as things emerge, we can bear witness to that, as opposed to just passing on to the next thing and being oblivious.
Yeah, and you notice that that's actually contained within the words in the book. Did you notice that? Page 6. Now go forth with the grace and blessings of Al-Haq.
Mm-hmm. There it is.
Just hanging out there, smiling at you, going.
And Al-Haq is what?
It's one of the names of God. It means the true or the real, or both the true and the real. The only reality.
Okay.
It's hard to translate, but it's a very cool name. Sufis like this name.
I can see why.
Yeah.
I was starting to have a a thought from a slightly different angle, which is that you've talked before about how there isn't an end point. And my own longtime teacher has also talked about something similar, that about the infinite, the finite and the infinite together. And what sort of started me on this little track is that I think it was yesterday, yeah, probably yesterday, I watched a video from Quantum magazine. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but they are very good at, let's say, popular science. And this particular video was about 2023 breakthroughs in mathematics, and they have one on philosophy and the other and physics. No, not philosophy, physics and computer science. But I didn't watch those two. As the maths one that particularly interested me. And one of the ones that they talked about was about tilings, which is, you know, you take a shape and you tile a plane with it. And it turns out that there's been really fantastic development. It's not an area of maths that particularly interests me, but there's been some quite fascinating developments, because some people sort of, through a series of steps, eventually found a single shape that you can use to tile a plane in what's called an aperiodic way. Like, it's very easy to tile in a periodic way. A square will tile in a periodic way, a triangle, all sorts of other things. But this one, what they had found leading up to it was they'd found some shapes that would do that, but in some cases you had to reflect them. So they were kind of mixed thing, and even that was quite an amazing development. And then somebody found this year that a particular shape that could tile the plane in a totally aperiodic way. It would never generate repeating patterns anywhere. And this aspect of mathematics in general, that it's never finished. There's always something new to discover. And I think that's probably true of every subject. I think that has a deep, what's the word? Connection, not really the right word, but it'll do, to what we're talking about here. Like, even a master is never finished with the potential for learning. And Nasruddin sort of finds the secret, but then he goes off and has this amazing life where he creates all these stories and pulls pranks on people and whatever, and creates a great deal of fun for the rest of us.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about with the non-repeating tile. That's actually a fascinating thing. It's an ugly looking tile too.
Yeah, maybe we can find that video and put it in the comments
Yeah,
or something.
if you would.
Yeah.
It's easy to find on
Yeah,
YouTube.
so
Just search for Quanta and it'll show up.
yeah.
Because it's a very recent video. The whole series is about the things in 2023, so they only presumably they only produced them in the last couple of weeks.
Alright. Well, if it strikes you, if you remember, feel free to share that video in our comments.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, that would help us out. Very cool, everybody. Do you have any last thoughts you want to add, Mushtaq?
Yeah, I'm hungry.
We know what that means. Well, everyone, thank you so much for joining us for, story time, because every once in a while we like to do that. It's soothing for us, and we get to just
Enjoy a story.
yeah.
And
So-
they usually almost always have food for thoughts. And we will put a link to a couple of other Nasruddin stories up in the
Yep.
comments here.
You'll get to
Because
see
they're all fun.
what came of him after this tale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He made the Hajj and spoke to Ibn Arabi when he was in Mecca.
Yep.
And he taught an entire starving village how to make stone soup.
Our hero Nasruddin.
Yeah.
All
All right.
Brady Bunch mode.
Brady Bunch mode.
Well, everyone, thank you so much for being here, whether you're here live or watching on the replay. We can wave to each other and everyone watching.
See y'all next time.
And yeah, we'll have Two Talk Sunday next week, God willing. So we'll see you then.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.